What's up, guys? It's Keg from Rum Pure Bets with another free pick video for UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik versus Gane. Break down the main event, probably the co-main event for you guys for this weekend. And that's all she wrote. All right, so let's dig into what we got. Main event for Saturday, Jairzinho Rozenstruik against Cyril Gane. Fight pretty cut and dry to me. Both these guys, two big heavyweight fighters that you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley, obviously. Both fighters, top 10 talents, and both have a chance to win the fight on Saturday. I think that Cyril Gane has shown himself to be a much more complete and well-rounded fighter in the cage than Rozenstruik thus far. I think he switches stances really well. He's incredibly light in his feet for his size. He's got obviously heavy hands like all heavyweights, and he's got a nice submission ground game that he's already shown a couple nice submissions in a previous promotion, plus one in the UFC against Don'Tale Mayes. So he was able to grab that heel hook and even a nice triangle choke on Rafael Pessoa. So as far as Cyril Gane, I think he's a pretty well-rounded heavyweight for what we see currently in the division. His striking game, solid. He's got excellent footwork. Like I said, really light in his feet. And it allows him to give his opponents different looks with his switch stances. So for the most part, he's a pretty patient fighter. He's not afraid to take his time, pick his opponents apart from range. He likes range until he sees a real opening where he can pounce on his opponents. Here's the problem, though, with backing him as a minus 275 favorite in this fight. The guy has not fought anybody worth their salt in his entire career in MMA. And when I say entire career, I mean 7 fights, period, full stop. That's the extent of his MMA career. So, you know, it's not impressive when you take a look at who he's beaten. It's not impressive to beat a 100-year-old Junior Dos Santos, a really slow Tanner Boser that we've seen other average heavyweights beat. And Don'Tale Mayes is a joke. Granted, he fought him in the Contender Series, but, you know, Don'Tale Mayes is really nothing to be proud of. And those are literally Cyril Gane's best wins in his entire UFC career. So everybody is saying, you know, this guy could be a world champion one day. And you know what? Maybe he could. He has been impressive so far. But what I know for a fact is I can't back a really big favorite who is completely unproven against anybody that's even remotely solid in the heavyweight division. So this will be by far his biggest test in the UFC in Rozenstruik. So, you know, I have to see Gane beat somebody that's a legitimate top 10 fighter before I can really buy into the hype. I just can't lay minus 275. Now, his opponent, Rozenstruik, a legitimate top 10 guy. He's got 1 loss in his career so far. And it was against Frankie Ngannou, who might be the heavyweight champion of the UFC in a couple months from now. So, you know, I can't hold anything against Rozenstruik for getting slept in 25 seconds against Francis Ngannou, because Ngannou is just pretty much levels above everybody in the heavyweight division right now, except Stipe Miocic, who is the heavyweight champion. So he's lost 5 rounds of a fight against Alistair Overeem. And in the last 10 seconds of a 25-minute fight where he got dominated the entire 5 rounds by Alistair Overeem, he caught Overeem, he split his face in half, and he got the win. But he looked really, really mediocre in that win against Alistair Overeem. And that's That's my problem, really. Like, yes, he has one loss, but he really has two losses. I mean, he beat Overeem in the last 10 seconds, but he looked so bad in that fight that I almost have to consider it a loss. So, another problem with Rozenstruik is I think that the fight has a chance to go deep, and he doesn't throw enough volume to win rounds on points. And that's going to be an issue against a guy in Gane that is going to throw a ton of volume. He averages 5.6 significant strikes landed per minute in Cyril Gane. So Rozenstruik worries me with the amount of volume that he actually does throw in a fight. But, 90% of the time, the fighter with more power in the heavyweight division usually wins the fight, especially in a 25-minute fight where all you have to do is really hit the button solid one time in order to drop somebody. And look no further than last weekend. Curtis Blades dominates Derek Lewis in round 1. He was dominating him in round 2. Derek Lewis, as a plus 330 underdog, hits the button one time. What happens? Curtis Blades goes to sleep and collect that underdog money on the Black Beast and Derek Lewis. So I think that Gane probably comes out strong. I think he's going to put it on Rozenstruik, probably win the first couple rounds early. But like I said, all it takes is Rozenstruik to hit the button one time, and it's all over but the crying. So, there's been one person that was able to knock Rozenstruik out. That was Ngannou. Other than that, he's been proven to be really durable against everybody else. And even in that Overeem fight, he still carried significant power into the 5th round. So this is a litmus test for Cyril Gane, not Rozenstruik. In my opinion, Rozenstruik is more proven right now than Cyril Gane is based on both of their careers side by side. So I think that Cyril Gane can win the fight by decision. I think he also has a really underrated submission game, so he could probably win this fight by submission. And I think he's got the power, if he hits the button, to knock Rozenstruik out. So I do think that there are more ways that Cyril Gane can win the fight. And I understand that's probably why they made him the size favorite that they did. But if I'm taking my chances after breaking down a few hours of tape this week, the only thing I'm betting is probably Rozenstruik by knockout at plus 320. Personally, I wouldn't drop the hammer on either of these fighters, especially with the heavyweight intangibles. You just never know. But, I don't mind taking a half-unit shot on Rozenstruik to have 25 minutes to knock Gane out at plus 320. So I don't really mind that. Personally, like I said, I really wouldn't drop the hammer. But for the purposes of the video, we'll take the underdog at plus 320. Even though, I could hear Big T right now in my ear telling me I'm crazy because he's on Gane, but I guess we'll find out Saturday night. One last note, though, on the fight. It would not shock me to see the fight go deep into the championship rounds. Round 4, round 5. Just the way that these guys tend to fight, Gane will stay at range. He's cautious. He'll probably be cautious of Rozenstruik's power in the first few rounds. And on the flip side, Rozenstruik has the type of game where he lets the fight come to him, doesn't throw a ton of volume. He has no problem waiting until he gets a shot, which is a big reason why I don't think he can win a decision here. But he'll wait until he gets a shot. So it would not shock me to see a couple overs in this fight cash. Over 2.5 rounds is minus 120. Over 3.5 rounds is plus 125. Over 4.5 rounds is, I think, somewhere around plus 180. I could see the fight going deep. And if it goes to the final bell, I'm almost certain that Cyril Gane will win the fight. His decision prop is like plus 300, I think. But if you decide to take Rozenstruik by knockout, which is probably what I'll do for a half unit at plus 320, I don't mind a hedge of betting over 2.5 rounds in the fight at minus 120. Because I think there's a possibility, A, that you can cash both. And at least you back yourself up where if the fight does go over, but Rozenstruik doesn't get the knockout, at least you're only going to vig out and lose the juice. So, like I said, for the purpose of the video, we'll take Rozenstruik by knockout at plus 320. And last fight, co-main event, Nikita Krylov, Magomed Ankalaev. You know, if you throw the Paul Craig loss out for Magomed Ankalaev, he's been incredibly impressive in the cage so far in his UFC stint. I really liked what I've seen from the kid. He's tough as nails. He's got phenomenal fight IQ. He might have the best wrestling base at the light heavyweight division since he's made the move to that division. On top of that, he's got an insane ground and pound that is ridiculously vicious. It's violent. It's beautiful. So it wouldn't shock me to see Ankalaev get an early stoppage by using his wrestling, taking Krylov down, and just ground and pounding him into the mat and ending it. Now, Nikita Krylov, solid fighter. I think he's a slight step up in class from Ankalaev's, beating of like Kudalaba, but not a large step up in class. I rate Ankalaev's win over Kudalaba just about what I think he'll do against Krylov. I think they're comparable fighters. And I think that Magomed Ankalaev's striking game is incredibly underrated. I think that it's as good, if not better, than Nikita Krylov's for sure. And I think that Ankalaev will be able to give Krylov the southpaw look because he switches stands. And we've seen that Nikita Krylov has been known to struggle against southpaws. So the one thing that probably concerns me, though, is Krylov has a solid submission game, especially off his back. And Magomed Ankalaev's only loss in the UFC was against Paul Craig when Paul Craig caught him in a triangle in a fight that he was absolutely dominating. But still, he let his guard down. He let Paul Craig get the triangle choke on him, and it ended up costing him. So I'm slightly concerned about that. But you have to think that Magomed Ankalaev is going to be ready for Krylov throwing submission attempts from his back because he knows his only loss was to Paul Craig, and that was the way he lost. So one more note I would say for the fight, Ankalaev now training with Eric Nixick. And if you look at Nixick's track record of taking fighters that have been average with other gyms and transforming them into having some of the best outings in their career. Take a look at Brad Tavares, Sergey Spivak, Maki Pitolo. So if he can take average fighters and make noticeable improvements, what's he going to do with a fighter like Magomed Ankalaev where he's already dominant? The sky is the limit for the kid as it is. I think that it can only help him here. So my biggest issue when breaking down the fight, I already knew I was going to be on Magomed Ankalaev from the start, especially after I watched the tape. But the biggest question for me was, how do you bet him? Because his decision prop is really nice here at plus 275. That's intriguing. But at the end of the day, I really do think that the ground and pound is going to win the day here. And I think he's probably going to get the job done by stoppage at minus 110. So I'm going to take Ankalaev by knockout minus 110 in the co-main event. In the main event, I guess I'll take the flyer on Rozenstruik by knockout at plus 320. And I'll probably try to back it up with a little mini hedge on over 2.5 rounds at minus 120 in that main event as well. So that's it, boys. Subscribers will be able to catch me on Saturday. I'll have the fight cast going Saturday at 6 p.m. And Sunday, I'll have the free public show for NASCAR at Homestead, the Dixie Vodka 400. So I'll see you guys soon. That's it. Good luck with your wagers this weekend. Let the action run pure. And I'll see you later.